Did the iPhone 15 meet my expectations? Let's talk about it. There are three things that I like to look at when considering an upgrade: is the camera, the battery life, and the screen specs. Full disclosure, I'm a professional videographer and content creator, so all of my opinions are going to be focused on those things, and I'm going to come from that standpoint. So just wanted to be transparent. USB-C finally here. No more Lightning, that's great. Let's start with the iPhone 15 thoughts though. Upon first glance, it looks pretty normal. It's offered in a variety of different colorways. Plus, there's a Plus model that features a bigger screen and bigger battery. Like I said, camera is one of the things that I really pay attention to with these new iPhones, and the iPhone 15 was pleasantly surprising. So that 48 megapixel main camera from the iPhone 14 Pro models is now brought to the 15. It features an f1.6 aperture and has sensor shift image stabilization. The pixels also take in more light, which is always a welcome addition. There's a 2x telephoto option, which technically gives you 4K quality using the same sensor. I find that really interesting because that allows you to have multiple focal lengths without physically changing the lenses. Obviously, you don't have to worry about that on your phone, but yeah. It was also mentioned that there's focus and depth control, so you can actually change the focus in portrait mode after you've taken the image. And using the machine learning that they kept talking about, the person detection should be a lot better than it initially was. And to be honest with you, I've never really been a fan of portrait mode simply because a lot of it was based on software. So hopefully there's improvements on that, but I wouldn't rely on it too much. The battery life, they mentioned that the A16 Bionic chip is now being brought to this, and it has a 20% more efficiency. So I'm sure we're gonna see some type of battery life improvements. The 15 Plus also has a bigger battery, but they didn't really touch on that all that much. Let's talk about the Pro, because even though the 15 is impressive, the 15 Pro is what I was waiting for. So a titanium design is introduced, which increases durability, lessens the weight. I think that's really cool because I'm team no case. I don't put a case on my phone. Go ahead, flame me in the comments. I've only dropped this thing once, really. The ringer and silent switch is gone, which I found kind of interesting because that's been such a very popular thing on iPhone. But the reason that I'm kind of okay with that is because you can customize what that task is that's assigned to that button. So for me personally, I would assign it to the camera, so that way I don't have to worry about going down to the bottom of the screen, holding the camera icon. I can just hit that one button, boom, I'm ready to get the shot. The A17 Pro Chip was introduced, which allegedly rivals high-end desktops. I'm sorry, I'm never gonna edit on my phone, even short form content. I will edit that on my MacBook 10 out of 10 times. USB-C also is up to 10 gigabits per second, which I really like because now that's going to increase my workflow capabilities. So now transferring things from here to my MacBook is going to be infinitely easier. Trust me, I love AirDrop, and AirDrop is one of the most innovative things ever, and I can still send it from phone to phone in proximity. But I gotta say, that's really gonna speed things up. Let's talk about the camera. There are 3 lenses still, but the equivalent of 7 in your pocket? Let's get into this. So the main lens, 48 megapixel Pro RAW, and high efficiency files. So that's what your iPhone normally takes whenever you just click shutter. That's huge. It's a 24 millimeter standard, but since it has that increased resolution, you can just bump it up with a tap to 28 and 35 millimeter, which if you're a photographer, videographer, you know that those focal lengths are like, they're prime. Not to mention you can set your main lens to be a default. So like if I wanted it to just be 35 and just wander the street and get cool photos, I could do that. HDR and the focus and depth control, as usual, improved. The telephoto lens is a 77 millimeter 2.8 aperture. What I found really interesting though is there is a 120 millimeter 5x optical zoom, and obviously stabilization is improved on there as well. The ultra wide is a 13 millimeter f2.2. I've never really been a huge fan of the ultra wide in low light, so I'm gonna have to mess with that a little bit to see how it really is. But to be honest with you, I'm just impressed that they managed to fit all these, like from basically 13 millimeters to 120 inside an iPhone. They also did showcase that you can connect your iPhone to Capture One, and essentially from there, you could have like an on-the-go studio setup because you can just like have the Pro RAW directly imported to your MacBook. That is really interesting, and I'm gonna be honest, I feel like that's an underrated part of what the iPhone can do, because there's such an emphasis on turnaround time now within content creation and professional videography, because the world is moving faster than it ever has before, and content has an even shorter shelf life, specifically vertical, now that you can just like swipe past so many different things. So anything that's going to make it more efficient to produce content, I think is a huge thing. For video, ProRes can not only record 4K 60, it can also record to an external source. Having an iPhone that can record ProRes to an external drive is crazy. I feel like I've always made fun of people that use like iPhone rigs, but I feel like we're gonna start seeing more of those. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I've always roasted people that do that, but this just adds more validity to that. There's also log encoding available, which I shoot in Vlog so I can color grade. So it shoots in a flat color profile. So then I can add colors and do essentially whatever I need to the image to make it however I want. Think of capturing content as like a run to the grocery store. You're going to get the ingredients. So like you could show up prepared with a list. You could know exactly where you need to go for certain things. And whenever you come home, you still have to prepare the dish. That's essentially what color grading is. So anything that's going to help set me up, oh man, that's crazy. And here's a feature that I think for now is going to be gimmicky, but might have more validity in the future, is the spatial video. Essentially, it uses the ultra wide camera and the main camera to create a 3D video. The biggest disappointment was still seeing no mention of aperture, shutter speed, ISO, white balance. I can't control any of that. So inconsistencies with footage is still going to be an issue from iPhone. The screen features smaller borders, which obviously more real estate we're not going to complain about. And it's got Pro Motion, which I do love on my MacBook Pro. It just like makes everything so smooth. Pre-orders are available this Friday, and you could start seeing them in your hand as soon as September 22nd, which is kind of wild. I bet you have a few questions. Will I be getting the iPhone 15 Pro? And short answer, yes. I have this iPhone 13 Pro Max that's been great to me, but like I said, I believe that the best camera you can have is the one that you have on you at any given moment. And I feel like I'd be doing myself a disservice not to upgrade right now. Not to mention the battery like health on this thing has gotten to about 80%. So I'm a heavy phone user because, I mean, like I said, social media content creation, managing a business, like this is my go-to thing. So yeah, I think it's time to upgrade. Will this replace my professional grade cameras? Is an excellent question, and a question that I get a lot is, do phones do what professional cameras do right now? Obviously, the quality is not on par. The gap between professional camera and phone is still there. Granted, I think this has closed the gap a little more, but there are a lot of things that these professional cameras, they just outclass the iPhone in every way. If I'm just going to an event or like going out to eat, grabbing coffee, lunch with a friend, or going to an influencer meetup locally, I'm gonna probably stick with just my iPhone unless I really want like beautiful bokeh, beautiful color grading, like so much flexibility and just like all these different like recording options and full flexibility over my footage. But like a lot of the times I don't need that unless I'm actually doing professional work. Outside of my studio and outside of professional work, yeah, I mean, the phone is probably gonna be my number one camera. I think really it comes down to convenience. And I think for a lot of people, that's enough to tip the scale. And with that said, I don't know if there's a starter camera that I would recommend that isn't your phone at this point. So like a lot of those entry-level beginner cameras, I think those are being outclassed by the iPhone, because not just convenience, but the quality gap really isn't as far. Now, if I'm comparing it to like the S5 II or the GH6, yeah, no, there's no competition in the quality of footage I'm gonna get. But when it comes to these beginner cameras that cost like, $1,000 or something that come with a lens, you may as well just learn audio, learn lighting, learn aperture and focal lengths, like learn the principles of content creation, photography, and videography. Then I think make the leap to a professional camera that you're gonna have to shell out a couple $1,000s for. But I just don't know if I can recommend getting just like a beginner camera. I still think that these are not gonna do everything for you. You still need to learn the principles of how to create good content, how to frame your shot, how to color grade, like all those things, all those factors are still gonna play into whether or not your stuff is good. Phones, it's a tool. This is a tool. What I'm filming on is a tool. These are all tools to help you do your job, but ultimately it's gonna come from here, whether or not you make good content. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit subscribe if you're a fellow photographer, content creator, videographer. On Friday, I'll be pre-ordering the iPhone. So let me know if you want to see tests, if you want to see like side-by-sides between the camera and iPhone. Thanks for tuning in.